It is the second to last Friday of the working year, and this will likely be our final video here of 2022, so let's make it a good one. We have lots of changes, some clarifications, and some very special guests. As always, this video is not immigration advice, it is just our commentary on immigration here in New Zealand. If you're looking for legal advice on immigration, please get in contact with us at the address in the description down below. It has been a year of changes. As you know, the operational manual is the rule book that Immigration New Zealand must follow. Each time that it is updated, we get an amendment circular, which is a notification to us as to which parts have changed, how the rules have changed, and how they will be applied from immigration at that point going forward. Now, in 2018, there was 12 circulars for the entire year, so 12 changes to the operational manual. In 2019, we had 15 changes to the operational manual. Now in 2020 there was 56, which was a new record beaten by in 2021 with 64. With 2 weeks still to go in this year and with at least one more amendment circular still to come, we're now on to 73 amendment circulars for 2022, with 7 arriving in just the past few days. We're going to cover some of these recent ones now to give you an idea as to what has been going on, what changes have come through in the past week. Now, most of this week's 7 amendment circulars won't impact many people, but we are going to look at a few that are going to have an impact on some of you. They are the larger changes that have taken place this week. Now, 67 was the first one this week, and it was a significant change as it extended those who were eligible to apply for a variation of work for visa conditions. Previously, it was only those who were looking to change employer, but will be doing the same job, the same occupation, in the same city, the same town, or what they call the same location. The new change allows for a variation to the occupation, the job you're doing, and also to the location, the town you're in, to anywhere in New Zealand, and of course a change to the employer. So basically any of those three things in any combination is allowed, any change at all effectively. There are still requirements. Those who are on essential skills work visa, as shown in the changes we see here, will require a labour market test still, unless a job appears on the in-demand list, on the green list, or you are earning twice the median salary. If the employer is accredited, there's no need to provide the INZ 1113 form. Now, if you are on an accredited employer work visa, as seen by the changes here, again, there's no need to show those things, but you will need to have a job token for that role. So the employer will have to have gone through the job check process. And those are the two big changes there. The next one was the Amendment Circular 68. Now, this banned the grant of visas to certain Iranian individuals in the government's response to the country's human rights violations. So not a large change, but definitely one that's important, and there it is there. We then look at number 69, which was an unusual one, and that allowed those on a critical purpose visitor visa to apply for a specific purpose work visa. And we think this is probably aimed more at the other critical workers than the critical health workers, as we would expect that most of the critical health workers have already had a chance to apply for the RV21 residence visa. But it does mention here as to the allowances there to apply for that visa for an ongoing right to remain in the country. Now, looking at 70, this was an update to clarify some investment allowances under the active investor plus visa category. If that is you need help with this visa category, please let us know. We're not going to cover it in this video, but please come back to us. We'll be able to assist you with your investment plus visa. 71 was related to the stand down period for MFAT supported students. 72 was an alteration to the green list allowances for the post-study work visas. And what this did is that it added quantity surveyor, project builder, civil engineering technician, and electrical engineering technician to those roles or to those qualifications that may grant you that longer post-study work visa allowance. That leads us to 73, which came through on Wednesday. So we had 7 come through in 3 days. This provided for greenlist changes for specialist doctors and nurses. Now, previously, the specialist medical staff were completely left off the list, which was unusual and unusual oversight. That people in the highlighted here, so cardiologists, hematologists, oncologists, these were all left off the list when it came to the green list for the Tier 1 residency, straight to residency approach. They have now been included with this change. Now, for nurses, when this category, this is down here, midwives and midwives. Now, when this category did come through back in July, nurses were listed in Tier 2, which required them to work for 2 years in New Zealand before they could apply for residency for the work to residence scheme. Now, at the time, the Prime Minister had suggested that if the 2-year requirement was too high, then perhaps they didn't actually want to come and work as a nurse in Aotearoa. 5 months later, and nurses are where they should be in the Tier 1 list, allowing to apply immediately for residence. And it's great to see that correction being made now. Would have been nice to have seen that back in July. We do expect to see a 74th amendment circular before the end of the year, as there is still at least one big announced change that we have yet to see, and that is the post-study work visa holders that were caught offshore. Now, this was of course, the press release from the Beehive a couple of days ago, and in here we have mention of the 12-month open work visa for approximately 1,800 previous holders of a post-study work visa who missed out because of the border closures in the 2020-2021 due to the pandemic. Now, that's as much detail as we currently have on that. It does look like those who had a post-study work visa and got caught offshore, of which the Minister says is 1,800. We can't verify that figure just yet. They'll be eligible for a 12-month open work visa. Now, there is no word yet on when this will be done, what the process will be, if there will be a cost and what that cost will be, or any other conditions that may come with it. So at the moment, it is a positive announcement, but it's not much more than that. It's just an announcement. We do hope to see that 74th Amendment circular at some point soon, hopefully in the next few days or the next week, and so give you a Christmas gift to some degree, giving us details on how it's going to be handled for all of those viewers who have been caught offshore on post-study work visas. Now, while it's not a change to the rules, so it's not going to appear in an amendment circular, we did receive another change yesterday as to the priority of applications. The Minister announced that medical professionals, those who appear on the Amendment Circular 73 we just saw, were eligible for having their RV21 applications escalated. Now, the applications need to be at the under assessment stage, something we're going to cover in a moment as to what that means, meaning those who are waiting for a national security check or who are otherwise stuck somewhere else in the process won't be able to get an escalation just yet. But for the rest of you, this is good, great news, kind of, maybe. We're going to sort of clarify why I'm saying that in just a moment. First, though, we want to have a look at the general end-of-year look at the processing of the Phase 2 applications for those still waiting to get their visas. Now, by our estimates, about 50%, maybe just over 50% of applications that were made in Phase 2 from March until the end of July are still being processed. So don't feel that you've been left behind if you are still sitting there with your application being processed and you haven't had a visa granted yet. About half, maybe just over half, are still sitting there in the queue getting things done. The new enhanced immigration system, and I really do have difficulty saying it's enhanced because it kind of isn't, so we'll call it ADEPT. So ADEPT continues to create issues, but we are seeing progress. In the past few days, several thousand applications for RV21 that were stuck at the preparing application phase, which is the very, very first phase, should have moved through to gathering information, with many of those actually skipping a step and going through to under assessment, as they had already had the police certificates done with a previous recent application. There are others still stuck at that preparing application stage, but Immigration New Zealand does appear to be working through those applications to get those issues fixed. We have found many applications that have gotten stuck with various issues and have been able to work with immigration to get these things fixed so they can move on or be granted in some situations. However, it doesn't mean that we can sort of do magic, or we have our contacts to push things through over and above any other application. We are helping our clients check their applications, get issues resolved, but for most it really does just come down to waiting, and that there is a queue there to get through. And for many, the waiting is the hard part, this idea that you're sitting there and your visa is going nowhere. And we think a big part of the issue is based around the wording that Immigration New Zealand have used when they've done this process. The final stage is called under assessment. Now, whoever who hears the words under assessment, it sounds like the application is actively being assessed. It's being reviewed. It's being looked at by an officer who's assessing it because it's under assessment. However, it's just a continuation of the poor language that we have seen throughout the ADEPT system. Something we've actually covered in our previous videos with the whole process and how poorly worded some of the application documentation actually was. What this stage should really have been called is ready for assessment, or perhaps automated parts have been done, bring on a human, because that's really what this is about. We've got through the automated parts, now it's up to a human to check the application. What it means is that the steps prior to this that have been done, most notably the police certificate and that with the gathering information, the character issues, all that sorts of things, the NSC security check if required, they have all been done at this point, and the system has the documentation that should be all they need to get through this step, and it's just waiting for an immigration officer to look at it. Now, there is no maximum number who can sit at this stage, so the system will keep loading people into the under assessment stage until it gets longer and longer and bigger and a longer and longer wait. And when they move into this under assessment stage, they are joining a queue, and they'll sit in that queue until they get an officer who the allocation is allocated to the officer. They check the application and then they make a decision. So for those of you who are waiting 2 or 3 months or more, it doesn't mean it is broken. Yes, there are things that can go wrong at this stage, and we've had to fix a few for our clients, but for most, it is really just a wait. It probably isn't stuck. It probably isn't due to an issue in ADEPT. It certainly isn't an issue most likely to any Immigration New Zealand staff who work very hard to get as many of these done as possible. It's just that there are tens of thousands of applications sitting at this stage and not enough staff to get them all done quickly. So when you see me online asking you to be patient, this is why. Your application isn't sitting on someone's desk waiting for them to finish their coffee. It's sitting in a long queue while they work very hard to get through as many as possible. Now, as an example, last Sunday morning, we had 2 applications come through granted by officers who were working before 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning. This is how they're trying to get these things done, by working extra hours and to get these queues broken through and worked. But that leads us back to the issue of escalation. As mentioned earlier in this video, we heard yesterday about medical staff having their RV21 applications escalated, and that is great for them as it gives them some more certainty. We also had split families applications getting escalated a few weeks ago. Now, in that escalation, they said it would be done within 5 working days. You apply for escalation and we'll get it done in 5 working days. But that was an underestimation as to the number of applications that they were going to get. Now, originally we heard there was 4 times more applications than they thought there would be falling under that split family category. We've since heard it's actually probably more than 4 times. So the ministers probably didn't check the numbers before he went, and they made this estimation of 5 working days. Adding to that load was people who weren't eligible for that escalation but applied for it anyway in this hope that they may get it by immigration making a mistake. Now, each of those times someone applied without being eligible for it, a staff member had to work on it, check their system. Were they eligible? No, they're not. Spend the time doing that, write to the person saying, no, you're not eligible, and then on to the next. And that took time away from them working on actual applications. So please don't do that. If you're not eligible, please don't apply just in case, because you are slowing down the thing for everybody. Now, we have had further escalations now with the medical team, medical staff, and that adds to an already long list of escalations that have yet to be processed. The issue with escalations is that if you escalate too many people, escalation no longer has any meaning. Now, we expect that those being escalated will see their visas sooner, but not in the 5 working days that was originally promised a few weeks ago with split families. Those medical professionals being escalated now will likely join the queue behind the split families who are still being processed and are already taking several weeks more than the estimate was going to be. So escalation will make it definitely faster for them, but it won't make it immediate or make it as fast as perhaps people originally thought it might. And of course, those who are escalated will then delay it for everybody else because they jump ahead of the queue, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but that is just how the escalation system works. So for all of you though, we ask that you give Immigration New Zealand time to work on these. So as I said, about half the applications are still sitting actually in the under assessment stage, which means tens of thousands of applications all sitting at that same stage with a limited number of staff to work on them. It takes time to process them. So at present, we're looking at an average of about 2 to 3 months to add under assessment, but with some very big variance. So there is some who are lucky who get it done in a couple of days, where we have others who are waiting 4 or 5 months at that stage, depending on their situation, because there's a lot of variables between one application to the next. So especially those of you with families where there is more than one applicant, there is children and a partner, they are taking longer than the others, so please just give them time. And that brings us to our special guest. Now, last year we did a video looking back to the previous 12 months of immigration news, going month by month as to what had taken place in what was a fairly tumultuous sort of year. This year we want to look both sort of going back, but also look at going forward. And to do that, we actually went to all 5 parties in government to ask them for a 2-minute take on immigration this year and what they saw in the future. Now, Te Pāti Māori and the ACT Party both gave their apologies that they were unable to get this done on time, and I thank them for responding and letting us know that. The Minister of Immigration chose not to respond at all. We are grateful to those who did and to the insight it provides, and they are probably the most vocal MPs in Parliament when it actually comes to immigration. So I'm really glad that they did come through with a video for us to talk about how they've seen the last year and what they see going forward. They have worked hard in Parliament this year to get effective change for migrants, for employers, and for New Zealand as a whole. First, we have Ricardo Menedez March, MP, the Green Party immigration spokesperson.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Ricardo Menedez March. I'm the Green Party immigration spokesperson, and I want to wish the migrant community in Aotearoa and those of you who serve our communities through your profession a happy holiday season. As we look back in 2022, I reflect on the major immigration changes that have both improved the lives of migrants, but have also brought uncertainty. For us in the Greens, we've been working alongside the community to fight for an amnesty for overstayers, to end the discrimination that disabled migrants face, pathways to residency for nurses, midwives, teachers, and more, restoring visas for people who got caught offshore, and more. And as I think of the year to come, there is a great opportunity for us to come together to fight for progressive changes to our immigration system, particularly with the reviews to the acceptable standards of health policy, as well as the pause that the government has put in place to the changes of working rights for partners. There is an opportunity for us to advocate for better rights for migrant communities. And as we think of the election season, I hope that all of us think of the well-being of our communities rather than resorting to the typical dog whistle politics that we have seen in previous terms. For us in the Greens, we'll continue campaigning to improve working rights of migrants, and this will include changes to the residency pathways that rely on high salaries, overhauling the RSC scheme so that workers' rights are at the forefront, and upholding our commitment to human rights via immigration policy. And that will include scrapping the horrible Section 392 of the Immigration Act so that migrants are fully covered by the Human Rights Act and can access the full functions of the Human Rights Commission. But right now, I wish everybody a restful holiday season so that we can all be energized to serve our communities next year. Kia ora.
We also have Erica Stanford. She's the MP for East Coast Bays and the National Party immigration spokesperson.
Hi, I'm Erica Stanford, National Party spokesperson for immigration, and in the next couple of minutes I'm going to give you my hot take on how I feel about this year and what I expect for next year in the immigration space. The way I described this year was a wasted opportunity in immigration. After 2 long years of COVID and businesses wanting to claw their way out of all of the losses from the last 2 years, what we needed was to hit the ground running this year in terms of getting skilled workers in the country. That didn't happen. Our slow border reopening meant that people just dribbled in all year, and it wasn't until July that our big brand new work visa opened up. And the latest figures that I've got to about 2 or 3 weeks ago show that only 6,000 workers in the AEWV have actually arrived in New Zealand. And when you think about Adrian Orr's comments and the Treasury's comments about the lack of skilled workers being the biggest handbrake in our economy and helping to push this inflation out for longer, it was so important that we got skilled workers in the country this year. And we didn't, and that's why I describe it as a lost opportunity. And unfortunately, next year it looks like, if you listen to Adrian Orr and the Reserve Bank, it looks like we're going to be heading into a recession that is going to last for 4 quarters and then slow growth after that. So the time that we really needed to get workers in the country was this year to try and avoid that really hard landing. And unfortunately that didn't happen, which means that hard landing next year is going to be even harder. Which is why it's important, come the end of next year, we need a change of government and a change of immigration settings so that we can get more workers, more skilled workers in the country. We can create clear and easy pathways to residence. We can unbottle and unclog some of the blockages in immigration New Zealand and get those desperately needed workers back into New Zealand. So with that, that's my 2-minute hot take on immigration. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Our thanks to Ricardo and Erica, both for the videos you've just seen, but more importantly, for the work that they have been doing in the past year in Parliament, and we expect to see more of them in 2023, which will be an election year. And finally, we wanted to provide some messages from some of our staff here at Stace Hammond.
Aiboan, Vanakam, Subanatalak Vewa, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone.
Meri Kirihimete.
Feliz cumpleaños y próspero año nuevo.
祝大家圣诞节快乐 Merry Christmas를 기원합니다.
From me to all of you for the final time here in 2022, kia kaha and have a wonderful but safe holiday period.